Good afternoon, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys today to kick off your exciting work as we also kick off the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. This October, the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy is marking 75 years of NDEEM, which celebrates America's workers with disabilities and reminds employers of the importance of including people with disabilities and inclusive hiring practices. This year's theme is increasing access and opportunity. 2020 is also an important anniversary for the disability community. On July 26th, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Signed into law by President George H.W. Bush in 1990, the spirit of the ADA was to ensure full participation of people with disabilities in all aspects of community life. This landmark civil rights law addressed the rights of people with disabilities, including prohibiting discrimination on the basis of disability in public transportation services such as city buses and public rail. It has led to major improvements in transit systems across the country. However, significant barriers still exist, particularly in rural and disadvantaged communities. As we celebrate many accomplishments stemming from the ADA over the past 3 decades, we have an opportunity to build on its success by leveraging new technologies, emerging data sets, and public-private partnerships to identify and address the needs that remain. In 2018, the Bureau of Transportation Statistics reported that an estimated 25.5 million Americans experience a travel-limiting disability that made it difficult to participate in activities of daily living. Half of this population was in the working age, but only about 1/5 of this population worked full or part-time. This population also experiences significant disparities in vehicle ownership, trip frequency, and socioeconomic status, highlighting the link between transportation and employment access. Our nation has endured devastating health and economic consequences as a result of the COVID-19 public health emergency. This has highlighted the critical need of people with disabilities to have access to on-demand transportation services that connect them to workplaces and other activities of daily living. In August, the labor force participation rate for people with disabilities age 16 and older was 20.6%, compared with 67% of their peers without disabilities. The unemployment rate for people with disabilities was 13.2%, while those without a disability had a rate of 8.4%. In addition to getting to work, people with disabilities must have access to transportation they need to get to the doctor's office, pharmacies, grocery stores, and all the destinations they need and want to get to as the nation recovers. We have learned some important lessons during these challenging times. Easter Seal's president, Angela Williams, probably said it best in her opinion piece on The Hill. Of the many lessons we've learned in the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic, let one of them be that we can be more inclusive and more adaptable to individuals who need transportation most. With or without this public health crisis, one of the lessons that we've learned is that new transportation technologies can be used to meet our most pressing transportation needs. This spring, automated shuttles began delivering COVID-19 tests to medical facilities, robotaxis and delivery robots are now dropping off groceries and takeout from local restaurants, and AVs designed to transport passengers are now being repurposed to deliver prescriptions to patients at home. Together, we can harness the equalizing power of transportation technology to improve mobility for people with disabilities, opening doors to opportunity. One thing that I'm particularly interested in is how the transportation needs of people with disabilities will change during and after the pandemic, and how new technologies can be used to meet these needs. Transportation network companies such as Uber, Lyft, and Via, highly automated vehicles, adaptive microtransit such as scooters and bikes, and more futuristic options like Hyperloop and urban air mobility can change the game for people with disabilities if designed around user needs. Inclusive design is an approach to designing vehicles and mobility services that meet the needs of people with physical, sensory, and cognitive disabilities, allowing them to complete each step of their trip successfully. Think of inclusive design like this. Curb cuts were designed for wheelchair users, but they're also beneficial to travelers with rolling suitcases and parents with strollers. Considering needs of people with disabilities will also result in access for older adults, allowing them to maintain independence and age in place. Having access to on-demand transportation that meets the needs of the user would fundamentally break down barriers for the disability community. Many of us are unable to drive, and those who can legally drive may not be able to afford an adapted vehicle. This means that we have to plan our rides around our ability to find a ride. This frequently involves scheduling paratransit days in advance with inconvenient trip pickup times. Running errands is not really an option when you have to choose 30-minute pickup windows on either end of the trip. And if you aren't ready and outside when the driver arrives, you can be left with no way home. This paradigm of transportation for people with disabilities is separate and unequal. However, the work you guys are doing to enable mobility on demand can bring about equity for our community. I would like to offer myself as a resource to you guys as you work to accomplish this vital and noble mission. As you can see, there is a great need to ensure an accessible transportation future for people with disabilities and others who experience travel limitations. Transportation is essential to employment, and employment is the only way to achieve economic self-sufficiency. It's also a social determinant of health. Along with you, we believe that technology innovation holds the promise to make our lives better. Let's move forward together, celebrating the spirit of the ADA and building on its success as we navigate a new transportation landscape. Thank you all so much for inviting me.